I call this regular meeting to order. Where's my gavel? Too big a desk. And the first item of business is the adoption of the agenda, and we have some changes to the agenda. So the changes are 6B, we have discussions on the 19th Street Delegation and Senior Society. So those two items on 6B. And the removal of 7E, temporary use permit for a distillery at 7500 Donaldson Drive. Please remove that from your agenda. And can I have a motion to adopt the modified agenda? Councillor Corlick, Councillor Thompson. Always count on you. All those in favor? Okay, and the next item is the adoption of the minutes from May 25th, regular meeting. Can I have a motion to adopt those? Councillor Zielinski, Councillor Studley. All those in favor?
Councillor Zielinski has a
Sorry,
statement.
Mayor, correction or?
A correction to the minutes?
Yeah, 7E. Or clarification, I just want to make sure before we pass them that I'm reading the right thing. Land acquisition program. Right in the middle, maintaining value for reinvestment and cost recovery, minimizing cost, waste, risks, and liability. Should it say for the city behind that?
You're saying it should say for the city?
What I'm asking is minimize cost, waste, and risks and liability, and we were more talking about again.
And who else would that be for? Like, it's one of those things where I think it's explained in the context.
And just so, and through your worship, that would be this recommendation was in a report, and I believe was verbatim, so that would be an amendment to that resolution. Is that correct, Daniel?
Yeah, and so this resolution would have been passed now as well.
Yeah.
So we couldn't, unless we go back in the tape and we actually amended it to say that, which I don't believe happened. This would be the resolution right now in the minutes, right?
So
Okay.
Yeah.
that's okay then, Councillor Zielinski?
Well, as long as you're happy with one of the people we're buying out coming to us and saying, no, you're not minimizing my costs.
Yes, okay. And again, the explanation being that this is part of a greater report.
Okay.
And, okay, so a motion is on the table to adopt the minutes of May 25th. Do we have first and second on that?
We do. Councillor Zielinski, Councillor
Yes.
Studley.
And all in favor? And any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, I would move down to the registered petitions and delegations. We have the temporary Market Avenue closure. And do we have
Yeah, we do have some.
visitors on that? We have
So the chamber.
Councillor Studley.
Councillor Studley, you have a question?
Yeah, I'd like to recuse myself for the Union Street closure.
Okay, thank you. We'll put
So
you in the waiting room.
We will move the councillor to the waiting room.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And
We don't have an identifier on the chamber delegate.
Sarah. Yeah, that's Sarah Dinsdale.
My eyes are going. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello, I believe the other chamber delegate is Jeff.
Jeff Farrell,
okay, we're
Nikki Best.
Nikki Best now has video. Just Amber and.
I can't get my video to turn on.
Okay, so Amber is joining just by audio, no video, and Jeff has renamed himself
To Jeff.
to Jeff.
Okay.
And just has no video, no audio turned on at the moment.
Welcome, Jeff. Nicole Best. And can I pass this over for your presentation on the matter? Do we have anything, Duncan, that you wanted to say on this? No, go ahead. Welcome, Jeff. Sarah, you're making the presentation?
Yes, I have a presentation. I think Jeff is going to share his screen, although I believe you guys have a copy of it in front of you, hopefully.
We have.
Okay, so I'm just going to run through the presentation, and then if there's any questions, we can have a review of them at the end, because there's quite a bit of detail in here. So if something comes up, hopefully I answer it as we go. Okay. The first, so today we're here to ask for the temporary closure of Market Ave from traffic between 2nd and 3rd Street and 3rd and 4th Street. We're asking for this closure to begin on June 29th and end September 30th. This is the same proposal we brought about a month ago, although we fine-tuned it and responded to some of the questions that you had at that time. So just going to the next slide. So the purpose of this proposal is to give businesses the opportunity to use the sidewalks and parking areas for expansion of their business while maintaining the main street as a walkway. Many different cities around the province are doing this in light of the new social distancing requirements. And the main goal is to increase business capacity and create a safe, comfortable, open seating and shopping area in our downtown core. This also reflects back to the Roger Brooks presentation. We want to create a vibrant downtown. I believe in the last presentation, there was some questions about looking at a secondary option where we only close the parking spaces. And so we did look at that option, and with the consultation of city staff, we came to the conclusion that it was unsafe to have a mixed vehicle and pedestrian shared on the roadway. Also, there would need to be more barricades down the center of the street. The aesthetic would be very cluttered, and it just wouldn't create the vibe that we want for the downtown core. Another priority was also leaving 3rd Street open, 3rd Ave open, and this is for through traffic and as well as parking. So just some things of note. Market Ave would remain accessible to emergency and delivery traffic. That's because there would be no permanent structures being installed. The concept is temporary, and we are prepared to adapt and learn what works and doesn't work as we go. So we realize that everything might not work on week 1, but we are prepared to adjust our plans as the summer goes on, because this is something that we really want to see happen in the future, in the coming years as well. We would want to work with the businesses downtown on layouts, planning, anything that they can do to improve their space. We know there's a number of businesses that are excited about this project, and they've already come up with temporary patio ideas and are thinking about how they can use this space in a positive manner. So we're looking for the city to approve the concept and help provide a few things such as signage, barricades, and help us with the guidelines on the use of space. And we would be looking at doing a review of the project in 6 weeks and again at the end of summer. We don't expect to have unanimous support for the idea. I know there was some last minute concerns brought forward, and we can speak to some of those concerns. We have obtained a number of business owner signatures that did support the idea, and we really feel that we need to try this out for summer and see if we can make it work. There's, the small businesses need help. We want to get people downtown. We want to create a more vibrant market district, and we think this is a great opportunity to do that. We can address some of the concerns of the businesses that aren't fully on board yet. We have a few weeks to do this before we're asking for the closure, and as I mentioned before, we can continue to do this as we move forward throughout the summer. This is just a very conceptual idea of what we're looking at. But basically the space down the center of Market Ave would be for pedestrian traffic. And this would also ensure that nothing is placed there so that it would be accessible for emergency vehicles. And again, 3rd Street will remain open. There are accessible handicap parking spots on 3rd as well as on 2nd and 4th Street. We'd be looking at temporary barricades on the ends. And we want to do something to define the pedestrian walkway. So whether that be planters, signage, maybe some temporary seating that comes out a little ways, we can look at working with the city on what that would look like. Addressing the emergency vehicle access concerns. Again, temporary barricades, clear access down the middle of the street, and no obstructions in the street to allow for single lane access. Delivery vehicle access would be the same thing. We see this as a very limited concern. Most of the businesses have delivery access to the back of their storefronts, but if any vehicles did need to come down for delivery, business owners and the drivers would be responsible for removing the barricades and putting them back up. And we could put signage to direct delivery traffic. By closing Market Ave between 2nd and 3rd and 3rd and 4th, we actually only lose 3 accessible parking spots. And there's plenty more parking along the side streets, as well as on 72nd and the city lot at Selford College. We can review the parking concerns kind of halfway through the summer, but there's plenty of parking downtown. We're not really losing that many spots if we consider to be open. So, part of the revitalization plan for downtown, pedestrian friendly. We want to attract people to come to the downtown area, wander, see more than one business, encourage them to explore the area. We're looking at sourcing planters, benches, some blade signage, all part of the downtown beautification piece, and we're working with the Downtown Business Association on this. We're hoping to get a quick turnaround on the decision, as we do have about 2 weeks left before we're looking to have this go into effect. And if we were to get the okay today from council, we would have to start planning, how we're going to make the area look, let businesses know, let the public know what's coming, and also we can start looking at what types of events or plans we could possibly do downtown to attract people. So some of the downtown vision going forward, and again, this is all depending on the provincial health officer's recommendations, but we see things like night and special event market, opportunities for pop-up shops, artisans, food trucks, and anything that we can do outdoors in a safe and socially distant environment. Buskers, music, artists, all sorts of things that we could do. Many other cities around the province, as I mentioned before, are doing something similar in support of business and in support of getting people to their downtown. So, yeah. Did I have one more?
That's it for slides, actually. So.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Sarah.
and I did include some links on your PDF with just a few of the other cities around the province that are doing something similar.
All right, any further comments from the rest of the delegation before we go to questions from council?
I think that Nikki might have contacted some of the businesses with concerns to see if there was some solutions to mitigate those concerns.
Nikki?
I absolutely did, and there was a few things brought up, and their main concern is how we're going to draw people back into the downtown core. As Sarah said, we're looking at some different ways to plan some events downtown. But as the Downtown Business Association, we're really looking forward to working with the Chamber on revitalizing downtown.
Jeff?
Yeah, no, I think Sarah's So at the point across, and I think Nicole has spoken with some of the businesses downtown that are opposed, and I think that's really what we want to do. There's all sorts of concepts and possibilities, right? But I think step one is like, are we going to be able to close the street down, and then what? And it'll largely be up to a lot of the businesses, so they need to be in favor of it. And like Sarah said, there are some businesses downtown that they want to go building decks and they know how they want things to look. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen in the next week or two, but there are people, a lot of the restaurants especially, right, that want to take over that space, sort of create an outdoor hangout if the weather ever gets on our side, I guess. But summer will be nice. So, and I think with some, it's like Sarah's ready to move on some of these Roger Brooks pieces. And the DBA as well for like just planters and benches and basic things. But I think if the street's closed, it looks a lot different than if the streets are open. So either way, we just sort of want to be able to start moving on some of that stuff. And this is kind of a curveball. I don't think we were expecting it. And I know part of that is the COVID social distancing, but we definitely, through that Roger Brooks plan, is focus on the whole pedestrian-friendly area, right? I know that just throwing up some barricades doesn't change that, but it's a good step one, and something you can easily reverse if it's a bad idea, right? So,
Yeah, I see that you have a 6 month review there, or 6 months, is it 6 weeks?
6 weeks, yeah, and that's honestly just, we could review it after 2 weeks if there's...
If it's not working.
15 people showing up with a problem and it's causing some issues. I mean, there's going to be some habits that would have to change around parking, which might be an inconvenient piece, but it's really just for shop owners and staff. And it's not, I don't know, it's mildly inconvenient. People might disagree, but.
Okay, and opening it up for questions, Councillor Zelinski's first and then Councillor Korlick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Great presentation, everybody. I'm more curious in what Chris is going to ask down the road, but I'll throw this out here right now, is the idea of bringing people downtown. Is this the right time? I know myself, with the COVID and everything, I'm down there maybe 1/10 of the time. And why this concerns me is if we don't get the people coming downtown at this time, does this now blow the whole idea of closing market in the years to come type thing? So if we don't get the people, is it a failure, but they're not coming because of COVID? I'm just wondering how we're going to juggle that.
Yeah, I think we got to be realistic. Like, you're not going to see 100 people hanging out downtown. And I don't even, you're right, if we even want that necessarily. No, we do. We'll definitely be following all the guidelines. I think it's going to be largely driven by the business, right? We spoke to some businesses, Amber can vouch for that. I think when Roger Brooks came to town, that idea was already floated, right? And it was a little ambitious, but we kind of were pushed because of COVID. It's almost like, oh, well, now we have a reason to try this. And I totally get what you're saying. There's some conceptual drawings of what things could look like, but whether businesses will be able to roll that out and whether the people will come is tough. And even some of our businesses that aren't opened yet might not be reopening, and it's going to be quiet down there. I don't know that this can change it, but hopefully it can help the situation.
And just to add to that, some of the businesses are already using the sidewalk space, and this idea would just help businesses that are already using that bit of space in front of them, allow pedestrians to pass safely. So, we might not have 100 people downtown at once, but if we do have a larger group downtown, they can walk freely back and forth and not feel like they're tucked in against a building in between a display and, trying to pass people on a crowded street. So it also creates that sense of safety for them, I think, if we can close it down and open up the roadway as a pedestrian zone.
And if I can just say something on behalf of the DBA, we really want to get things rolling downtown, and what a better time to start and make people feel good and just make things brighter and happier and cheerier than now. What better time than now?
Thanks, Nikki. And Councillor Corlick is waiting?
I agree. I think this is a perfect opportunity to move into new things. It's sometimes hard when it's been an old established routine, but when you're kind of forced into it, why not give it a shot? What have you got to lose at this point? I mean, I think it's a good idea, and I wish everyone all the best, and you certainly have my support going forward on that. You've worked hard in your presentations and the direction you're trying to take to go forward. So I wish you all the luck, and I think it's a good idea.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an excellent idea. Some people just don't like change. They're leery of it. But I think that that you have to do this. You have to try this. Yeah, it may have some bumps and hiccups along the way, but I think that that in the summer, Ministry of Health, Dr. Henry, she's lifting the requirements, and I'm going into, I think, stage 3 next week, possibly. And so, I mean, it's an opportunity for local business to attract business. And no, I mean, I haven't been downtown much myself because of health issues, but things are looking up, and the weather looks up, I'm going to be down there. So yeah, I support this very much.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Corlick, your hand is still up, but I think Councillor Moslin was next.
Okay, with your permission, Mayor?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Councillor Corlick said. She was muted, but
I'll assume your hand's down. I'll go.
Oh, my hand is up, but I'll wait my turn.
Oh,
okay. Councillor Moslin.
okay. Thank you, Worship. Well, you know, I do have reservations about this proposal. You know, coming from the Trails guy, that's really something. You know, Roger Brooks was asked about this when he was here, and he said, "Yeah, don't do it till you need to." And here we are. We probably need to. Although I would not push it up. I thought we had got that council had taken a big step earlier this term when they approved the 4-way stop at 2nd and Market. At that time, that improvement was to you know, encourage pedestrian access and to based on anecdotal evidence, make vehicle traffic safer. That is, put them together a little bit more safely. You know, you talk about reviews, but just a question then for Sarah. What are we going to be looking for? What are we going to be reviewing? The number of businesses still open, the number of businesses that have reopened, an increase in pedestrian traffic. If so, who's counting? So yeah, you know, and I also kind of think, well, the way COVID is maybe pushing us, it's moving us away from pedestrian and more to an encapsulated society. We keep talking about bubbles. Well, it sounds like a car to me. You know, I get in my car, I drive down the back lane, somebody comes out with my groceries, away I go. It's the very antithesis of Roger Brooks, where people mingle and linger. But I'm really stuck at the vision and how COVID is impacting it. Anyhow, I guess my question is, what are we going to look for, or what would you look for in 6 weeks from now or sooner? Thank you.
Okay, and leaving that for Sarah or someone from the committee?
I think in 6 weeks, we need to, I think before that, I think this needs to be an ongoing conversation with businesses in the downtown core. How are you finding your sales? Are you able to increase your business right now? What's the feeling like downtown? Do we send out a public survey and say, hey, have you come downtown? Have you checked out you know, the new pedestrian friendly area, are we able to host an event? You know, what are our restrictions going forward from the provincial health officer? If we are moving to reopen kind of public spaces and public events, and we host different things downtown, whether it's a food truck night or an evening market type idea, you know, I think we take our cues from those events and go, okay, did we, you know, what was our turnout like? What were we expecting? What's the public feedback? But it is going to be up to, I think, the business owners to be giving us the feedback as we go. And we will make sure that we are reaching out to them between us and the DBA to say, you know, tell us what can we improve? What worked for you during week 1? That might not work for you in August, depending on where things are. If we're getting more tourist traffic, is the parking now not sufficient? Do we need to look at more accessible parking spots? I mean, all these things. I think we need to be ready to adapt on the fly as we go through the summer. That's my take. Maybe Amber might be able to speak up as to, from a business point of view, what they can monitor in terms of success.
Amber, did you want to comment there?
Yes, please. Thank you. So we're always talking to our customers to see what their experience is like downtown, see what they're looking for, what they would like to see downtown. And I think that's a really good gauge of how successful this will be or not. I think we really need to keep in mind too that we need the capacity for the cafes and restaurants. This isn't all just about trying, this is also supporting those that need to have that capacity to stay afloat as well. And I think what we're gonna see too is extra people taking the opportunity to eat outside because there is so much limited space inside those restaurants and cafes, as well as giving tourists and locals extra opportunities for different foods with bringing in food trucks if that's possible. So I think the businesses, it's kind of on them to tap into their customers and find out, is this working for them? Or do we need to work on other solutions for problems that come up? I think that most businesses are fully capable of talking to their customers and finding that out.
Thank you, Amber.
I'll quickly jump in, and I kind of agree with Chris, and Rod made the same point. Like, I don't think it's going to be a big bang right off the start, but I think a measurement will be like business uptake, right? We're sort of here to see if it's viable and if we're allowed to do this, but it's going to be on the businesses to make it work, right? Like, no one's going to go give the restaurants or cafes extra table. Like, maybe we will get a couple picnic tables or something downtown, but largely it'll be sort of like Jogas does, you know, they install that little deck and that's awesome. And things like that, and I know other businesses are talking about that, but no one should expect that we or DBA for everyone. We believe that's what the businesses want, so hopefully we can get out of it. The gauge of whether or not it's working in some form will be after a month. Are the businesses putting tables out? Are they putting people out there to eat? Do they like what's happening? And I think we'll be quickly able to adapt, and hopefully, you know, maybe they need a couple extra benches or something that we can work out, but it's going to be on business owners, and hopefully we're supporting them through this.
And we as the DBA are, we're quite willing to work with the chamber and move forward on this. We're excited and really want to see this happen.
Councillor Corlick.
I just want to mention that I think the age demographics are changing as well. When you're downtown, you see a lot of people with their kids. Even now, they're out there on their bikes and going where they can. And I think that's going to make a huge difference, because we need to encourage the younger demographic. They're the ones that are going to come downtown. They're the people that are going to go to the new breweries and everything else that will be trying to grow in downtown. And I think the age demographic is going to play a huge, huge part in this. Whether it's anything, it's honestly, I hear all the time, well, town closes at 5 o'clock. Well, it does, unfortunately. So now maybe this is going to change things. And that's again what Roger Brooks was saying. You do need these things in place to have a vibrant community and go forward. And you can't just roll up the carpets at 5, let's say, or have nothing to draw anybody downtown. I mean, we want people that are, to come to town that are younger and with families, not just all seniors. I mean, seniors are more than welcome, of course, but it's a whole range of people. So we just have to, we can't cater just to one group, but to everyone. So I think this is a step forward, and I'm hoping it all works well. And it will take time, but everything does. So good luck.
Thank you. Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to get back to how do we know if it works? So I know all of you had, well, if the business owner likes this or doesn't like that, is it, and I'm a numbers guy. If I get 2 letters of complaint on something, it means something to me. If I get 200 letters of complaint, it means something else. So I'm just wondering whether or not there's 4, 5, 6 quick questions that you can ask your membership before it closes, during the closure, at the end of the thing, at the end of the 9 weeks or whatever we've got there, just to see whether or not it worked for the businesses. But something that we can gauge as we go along, not just, hey, it was a good feeling for me, how was it for you, type thing. So,
Yeah. I feel like we could probably commit to doing almost a weekly check-in with, you know, there's not that many business owners downtown. And we probably should, if we go through with this, right?
yeah, and maybe it's something like lots of traffic this week, more traffic the next week type thing, but or something that we can gauge the success on it for next year.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. No one's gonna know anything if we don't try it. And so, you know, we can ask all kinds of questions. It's the business community themselves that are gonna know whether or not it's working. And I'm sure that council would be made well aware that no, this just, you know, thank you very much, it's just not working. But you know, I remember as a kid growing up here, you know, the big nights were Saturday nights, and then it became Friday night, where stores were open until 9 o'clock and the town was buzzing. So, you know, I'd really like to see if we couldn't get, you know, encourage that kind of a turnout and community involvement as well. And with tourist season, yeah, you know, you want to have something that's going to attract people to come here, stay here, shop here, eat here, do all of those things. So unless we give this the good old college try, as they say, we're not going to know anything. So I'm certainly supportive, and I really want to see this go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. And no more hands are raised, and I would like to give the last comments to the delegation. Anything further to say before we move on? This will be dealt with under 7C in the agenda later on.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think we can definitely commit to doing the survey and the weekly check-in and address any concerns. I did briefly touch on the businesses that came forward and had some, I think they had some concerns going forward about this. And I think we can definitely make a commitment to reach out to them within the next week or two before this closure happens and address any concerns that they have, and just move forward with seeing how we can make this work best for everyone. And I agree, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I think to give it a try and to see where we can go from here. And I think it's a really exciting concept and idea. And I hope that, and I feel like the businesses will take advantage, and we can start planning some, you know, supporting them and planning events and activities to draw people to the downtown and liven it up a little bit past 5 p.m.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to the delegation, Nikki and Jeff. And this, like I said, will be dealt with later on the agenda. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, venturing forward.
Okay.
The
Bringing Councillor Studley back in.
Councillor Studley's back. The next item of business is support services for vulnerable populations, and we have some delegation representatives here from Ask Wellness and Anchors Interior Health, all three of them. How are we doing for coming in? Cheryl, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Jen Driscoll. Hello, Jen.
And Bob Hughes has got no video but appears to be with us.
Bob Hughes is incognito, but he's here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, Bob. All right. It's your agenda item here. Can I turn it over to you, Bob?
Hi, thanks everybody. My name is Bob Hughes. I am the Chief Executive Officer with Ask Wellness Society, and I've had the opportunity for the past few months to work in the community of Grand Forks, providing a COVID prevention outreach worker that has been supporting the efforts to prevent the spread of COVID in the community. I'm here alongside Cheryl Dowden, the Executive Director of Anchors, and Jennifer Driscoll with Interior Health. As part of our delegation, I would like to have Cheryl present first regarding her organization and the specific ask to the City of Grand Forks. We'll then have Jennifer Driscoll presenting the perspective from Interior Health. And the hope is that I would close out our session and our presentation with a brief discussion around housing opportunities available to the City of Grand Forks. So thank you, all of you, for the opportunity today, and I will pass it on to Cheryl.
So thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for hosting our delegation here this afternoon. My name is Cheryl Dowden, and I'm the Executive Director of Anchors, and we are a harm reduction organization. We're located in Nelson, and we have an office in Cranbrook, but we provide services to the West Kootenay boundary, and we have for over the last couple of decades. As Bob said, we've been working collaboratively with a group of stakeholders, including Interior Health, mental health and substance use. Jen Driscoll here is the harm reduction coordinator and has also been working with the BC Housing back-streamed approaches to COVID-19 in a number of different communities, including Cranbrook and Nelson. And since the beginning of COVID-19, we've been working with the Emergency Response Committee to support vulnerable populations, including those who are homeless and precariously housed in Grand Forks. We have kind of scaled up our outreach support to Grand Forks. So we have a number of outreach workers on the ground right now, including Bob from Ask Wellness. He has Barney, who some of you know and have met. And also we have the mental health and substance use outreach workers and the Anchors outreach workers, and we have a health outreach nurse. And we have identified about 30 individuals who are homeless or precariously housed in Grand Forks that we have been providing with services, and really just trying to keep folks safe during this COVID situation. One of the encampments, Moto, we have been concerned because there isn't a lot of sanitation services there, and we know at the moment, I think there are about 6 individuals that are on that site, and I know that there's been some particular challenges with the Moto site. we're aware of that. But we're concerned that there isn't any place for folks to wash their hands or go to the bathroom. I think there's a bathroom there that's a composting toilet. But our outreach workers have been very concerned about the lack of sanitation there. And certainly with COVID-19, we want to make sure that people are able to wash their hands and go to the bathroom. So what we'd like to do today is just request that the city allow for some sanitation, not in the encampment itself, but outside the encampment on public land, just a porta potty and hand washing station. And BC Housing will provide funding for that. We'd like to work with city staff to have that sanitation site set up and maintained, and that we will work together to cover the cost of that. And I'd like to turn it over to Jen, and maybe you can talk a little bit more about the COVID-19 response.
Thank you for having me at this delegation. So like Cheryl and Bob described, I do work for Interior Health as a Regional Harm Reduction Coordinator, and have been acting to support communities with their COVID-19 shelter plans for vulnerable populations. Neither the Interior Health Community Rep for Grand Forks or the Operations Director were able to attend today's meeting, and therefore I was asked to be here. So thanks again for having me. I was really pleased with the Provincial Health Officer's letter to municipalities and the attached guidelines for responding to homeless encampments and the health issues that are a part of the encampments were included in the invite to the meeting, as I'm going to be speaking pretty directly to those guidelines, or from those guidelines. So Cheryl talked about many actions and strategies that are already happening in the community of Grand Forks that are aligned with the provincial guidelines and best practices when we're looking at responding to health in an encampment. The guideline recognizes that while encampments or tent cities can offer vulnerable people a sense of community and security, they're not a suitable or a desirable form of long-term housing, but maybe a temporary and necessary place to provide shelter when other options aren't available. So I just want to be clear about that piece, and Bob's going to get to that close that part of our presentation. I just want to speak to a couple of points in the guideline that are directly related to sanitation and health. And if you haven't had a chance to look at the guideline or the letter that came through to municipalities, I can certainly send it off at the end of this meeting. It just came out last week, so it's definitely new. So on page 3, under issues and strategies in the section titled Sanitation and Health, the inability to access water, food, sanitation, and waste management all create a cumulative risk for the development of disease and the potential for outbreaks of both gastrointestinal diseases or respiratory diseases such as COVID-19 at a camp. And because we're here to advocate for basic sanitation on or near the moto encampment, I wanted to draw attention to the 3rd bullet under this section. It speaks to the following. So it directly says that health authorities can advise on the number of toilet and hand washing stations to be made available, their location, access, and maintenance, as well as for gray waters to be disposed of to maintain sanitation and help prevent outbreaks. So given this statement, the health authority supports the request for porta potties and hand washing stations to be installed and maintained within close proximity of the moto encampment. So I'm going to pause there and pass the meeting along to Bob Hughes for that. Thanks.
Hello again. So I'd like to just take the opportunity to speak to current opportunities within the province of BC for the development of affordable housing. As I think all of you know, there has been an affordable housing crisis across the province, and I would suggest, based on our experiences working in smaller communities, including Merritt, BC, that small communities such as Grand Forks are particularly at a disadvantage in terms of the provision of affordable housing, whether from the private sector or from the public sector. We're well aware of the unique circumstances that Grand Forks faces as a result of the floods in 2017 and 18, and have had the opportunity to work with Councillor Moslin in understanding the severity of the housing shortage, in particular in the Ruckle and South and North Ruckle area, and see the circumstances at, in particular, the motocross site, where an encampment has developed, and the challenges that the city faces in terms of trying to address both the health and housing circumstances that many of the individuals face. For the past 2.5 months, we have been able to work with a local man who has joined Ask Wellness in a short-term capacity directly in response to the COVID-19 crisis by providing Monday to Friday support services for that individual, for him to provide services in the community. We've also been trying to secure a number of units in the community as part of the Interior Health developed vulnerable persons response to COVID-19, and have had the opportunity to prepare for the possibility of somebody in the community across any of the socioeconomic stratosphere in the community to be able to stay within a confined site where they could socially isolate and await the outcome of a test. So we've had the opportunity to explore some of the motels as an interim solution to both the COVID crisis, and would invite council to consider the opportunities that currently exist by BC Housing, in particular the CHF, or the Community Housing Fund, that is available, as well as the opportunities for some level of supportive housing in the community. We all recognize, both from anchors and in working with Interior Health, that an encampment such as motocross is not in any way an ideal setting to address the pandemic, nor any kind of long-term needs for vulnerable populations in the community, and would like to work with the City of Grand Forks around the possibility of developing not only a response for supportive housing for individuals such as those at motocross and other individuals living rough in the community, but also to consider the wide spectrum of housing opportunities available for funding in the community. I recognize that one of the important factors in being able to have any of these kind of developments is to have a skilled local operator to be able to provide the both the development support for any facility, as well as the operating side. And it's our hope that within the community or in the region, that there is a effective and trusted nonprofit operator that can take on that role. But for the purposes of today, as I'd like to echo Cheryl and Jennifer's comments about the need for an immediate response for the public health safety of not only those who are at the moto, but any other individual who may be coming through the community and up into that public area where they would be able to access a temporary toilet service, as well as the ability to do hand washing. So I'll leave it at that, unless Cheryl or Jennifer, you'd like to follow up with any other comments. But again, I greatly appreciate the opportunity today to present to the council.
Seeing no uptake on further comments, Mr. Hughes, can I open it to questions from council?
Please, Your Worship, we'd welcome any questions from council.
And seeing. I'm not seeing any. Well, Councillor Moslin, please.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks very much, Bob, Jen, Cheryl, for coming before council this afternoon. As you know, council has and is attempting to make public its decisions about that area and about Modo. And I think council's decisions to basically seek a solution through attrition seem to be having some impact already in the area with the decline of the population there. Anyhow, those are some, there are some decisions set before council later on in this meeting. Nonetheless, just a couple points, a couple questions. At one time, so question for Bob, have your hand washing stations arrived or been installed within the city?
Alderman Moslin, we did purchase with BC Housing's support 2 small hand washing stations. They, as you can imagine, are difficult to obtain. They took much longer to arrive than anticipated. And we're very disappointed on the receipt of them in that they were fully inadequate. They're very, very small scale. We have one of them that has been used on a mobile level should somebody require it with Barney's presence as he travels with his truck in the community. But the one that we had intended to install near the city park, adjacent to the porta potty that's been placed there, simply was inadequate. So we rather discouraged by what arrived via shipping, and our intention would be to actually purchase a much more a secure and a suitable hand washing unit should the opportunity present itself for us at the motocross or near the motocross site on the entry in.
Okay, and I guess as a subsequent follow-up question, you talked about placing the porta potty and this upgraded hand washing station someplace where the public could also access it. Now, I'm not too sure where your thinking is. Are you thinking of installing them at the staging area above Moto, or do you have something specific in mind, or are you just going to wait till things pan out here?
Cheryl, maybe you could speak to it. I think you mapped out, and again, whatever location that would be, if possible, if this is supported by council, it would be something done in consultation with the city staff of Grand Forks, but I believe Cheryl has an identified site that would be recommended.
Yeah, Mr. Moslin, that's exactly where we were thinking, is what you described, the staging area above Moto. So it wouldn't actually be in the encampment, but it would be available to the public, anyone, you know, who was passing through there as well. You know, I realize the numbers of folks who are at the encampment are dwindling, and that may continue to be the case. But I think for as long as people are in the encampment or nearby or going through the encampment, to have that sanitation service available is important. In Nelson, we have an encampment outside of the rec center, and there are, I think there's been anywhere between 4 and 6 individuals camping there. And there's a porta potty that's stationed nearby and maintained for those 4 to 6 individuals. And the other thing I will add as well is that Anchor's outreach staff are providing 5 camp showers for the folks who are at Moto right now, because there aren't showering facilities there.
Thank you. And Councillor Thompson, you had your hand up. Did you want to jump in here?
Well, I just, the last thing that Cheryl talked about was there's, okay, so you've installed 5 showers?
They're bush showers, so they're like the kinds of showers that work on a foot pump that you would find at like a tree planting camp.
Okay, so are these located at each individual site?
Correct. Yeah, so they're given to the individuals.
Thank you.
All right, I see no further questions from council. Mr. Hughes, did you, oh, just a moment. Councillor Moslin has his hand up again.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thanks, Your Worship. I do have a follow-up question again for Bob. Bob, I think you were encouraging encouraging the community to seek provincial funding to find housing solutions. Basically, is that, and you have, I think, some specific sources of funding in mind. If you elaborate briefly on that, please.
Thank you. Obviously, the issue of people living rough, both along the riverbanks before the freshet hit the community, was very apparent to, I think, many community members. And as well, we know that the motocross has posed some significant challenges for the city and for neighbors in the area. In our experience of working in the interior BC, the value of housing cannot be underestimated in terms of minimizing and the impact of homelessness is by providing adequate support services attached to housing for those who need it. We know that the province of British Columbia with BC Housing has been quite ambitious across the province in providing supportive housing for individuals who struggle with everything from life skills to substance use issues and mental health issues. And I believe, like any community in the province, there is a segment of the local community that struggle with these issues. And we know that in a community like Grand Forks, where there isn't a shelter provided, there is no option for individuals who are unable to find affordable housing other than to find places like Moto to try to survive. With the current climate within the province, both as a result of COVID and the recognition of the desperate need for affordable housing, there is currently a call of the Community Housing Fund that is seeking applicants from the nonprofit community to develop housing fully funded by the province, and that is for both families and for individuals, including seniors, to develop housing and to provide the required support services attached. In terms of supportive housing, I believe that the community has already been in that position before, and unfortunately, the way that I believe that it was presented with a very large-scale facility in the center of downtown obviously was, in my mind, not a suitable location nor scale for a community like Grand Forks. I believe there's opportunity based on our experiences in working with communities and the province to develop suitable facilities that meet the needs of the community. So encouraging council to consider the opportunity that may exist with the purchase of a motel in the community to provide an interim solution that would be able to address the immediate needs that we see with motocross and other individuals who are living rough. And in previous responses put forward by the province through the rapid response to homelessness involved the creation of 52 units of supportive housing. And in my discussion with a number of stakeholders in the community, that clearly was at a scale that was not appropriate for the current needs. What we can see now from our work, and I believe from Anchors, is that there's at least 15 to 20 people that could benefit immediately from the provision of housing with supports. And I believe that the opportunity continues to exist to work with the province of BC through BC Housing to try to secure a facility that would meet this immediate need and potentially then look on the longer term to develop a wide range of affordable housing in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Just to correct one piece of information, BC Housing down-numbered that plan to place a facility in downtown Grand Forks to 34. So just to keep that clear in the public's mind, that was not the intent. Was 52 units was downsized some time ago through this previous council. And Councillor Zielinski had his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. I just want to clarify that, Bob, what I thought I heard you say, that regardless of what housing strategy that we try and latch on to, it all comes down to the provider. That we still need a provider to, even if BC Housing walked in with a boatload of money, we still need that provider. That's correct?
That's correct. That would be my experience, and is that you need to have hopefully a local provider that can work with community stakeholders such as City Council and others to effectively design the facility as well as be capable of operating in a way that is ensures that public safety is of paramount.
Councillor Corlick.
Sorry, so, am I hearing that if it was to purchase a motel, it would be BC Housing purchasing that?
That's correct in my experience, and of course, if BC Housing was able to present, they could give you the clear, direct response to this. But in my experience, it is the province through BC Housing that does the purchase in the event of a location that's being identified as suitable, and that they would do the purchase, and the operator would then assume either the ownership of it or would become the operator of that provincially owned facility.
Okay, still need a provider, and it doesn't matter if it was 52 or 34 in that particular location, it was not acceptable to the community, so, I guess there's other thoughts. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, did I understand it for Bob? Did I understand that you are suggesting that the city approach BC Housing?
I think that's it. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
With this proposal, or would it be more appropriate for an organization such as yours that would work together with BC Housing and come to council with a proposal?
I think it's best suited for a organization to work with City Council around clearly identifying the need and the willingness to support this form of housing in the community. Clearly having an operator is something that I hope that the community is able to develop. In other circumstances, there has been organizations that have come in and developed a presence in the community and have been able to be the lead around the development and the operation. My hope is that there is a local organization that has the support of council to work with the province to do the development and prepare for the operation of a suitable facility.
Okay, and as a follow-up, if I may, the people that are in at the Moto,
yes.
Did I understand you to say that they would all be willing to relocate if there was a facility for them to relocate to?
I can answer this and then welcome both Jen and Cheryl to provide their response. I think that without an opportunity, it's not something that we've been able to confirm whether they would or would not. Obviously, it wouldn't be a mandated case, but one of the challenges I would suggest is that we're facing the community is without the provision of even an interim solution such as a motel to provide housing and supports, people have no option and no place to go that are in the community. Obviously, if there was the provision of some form of affordable housing with supports, that opportunity would be presented, but clearly they would have to be willing to move in and be willing to agree to the program agreement that requires them to obviously to sign and to participate in. In my experience of the provision of supportive housing, we have over 600 units of housing across the region, is that supportive housing requires a program agreement that allows for the operator to ensure that any issues that arise on an immediate basis are dealt with promptly outside the Residential Tenancy Act, that ensures that public safety is kept at the highest level of requirement, as well as working on some level of change in their lives to help them to move from being homeless and the issues that come and attach to being in that circumstance to being able to move towards a tenancy arrangement over time.
Thank you. I see no further questions up there, Council. Thank you very much for the delegation. Bob, is there a final word from your group that you would like to make here?
If I could, just to reiterate the request, based on the urgency that we see with people in and around the motocross area, that we would like the support and to work with city staff around trying to provide some basic sanitation to those individuals, while we hope to work with the community to find both an interim and long-term solution to the housing crisis that the community is facing.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob and Cheryl and Jen. We'll be dealing again with Moto later on in the agenda, so that question of sanitation will come forward. Mr. Redfern, did you want to add anything at this point?
Nope, I think we're good.
He does not? Okay. So this will be on the agenda further on in today's agenda. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good
Yeah,
night.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And can I ask, what is the unfinished business?
Well, that's a standard item that's on there. so-
Okay, there is none.
No.
I thought it was a hint that we missed something.
No.
Okay, and we're down to council reports, and we have no written reports from council, I understand?
Only one, Councillor Moslin.
Councillor Moslin, all right, Councillor Moslin, you get the first slot with a written report. Councillor Moslin.
Sorry, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm home alone trying to do chores. Okay, yes, my report, well, maybe I just take a quick glance at it, Your Worship. I don't mean to read the whole thing. I do want to once again thank people for the tremendous community effort for Fresh at 2020. I think we dodged another bullet. I really do think, though, that we need to consider the impact of these freshettes on vulnerable areas in our community. You know, I'm thinking specifically of Johnson's Flats as we go forward with further discussion on that issue later on in the meeting. We certainly have discussed Moto. You know, I appreciate the effort of council and staff working with these different agencies. You know, you did hear from the previous presenters that there has been an increase in outreach work. And I believe that is the case. And these outreach workers aren't just going to Moto, they're going to the other encampments as well. Okay, so it really is a complicated situation. Solving you know, the issue of Moto, making decisions about Moto, well, there's still several other sites that probably need some attention too. The postponement of the Social Services Advisory Group, yeah, I did pass along the question. That group is going to meet next week, come up with an answer. On recreational facilities, Councillor Korlick did a good job this morning of describing the phased, is it phases or stages? I think the regional district calls it stages of gradual opening. And with her, I do, you know, the aquatic center will be open, but it won't be open to seniors who are probably like 70 to 75% of their customers. So it becomes problematic balancing services and revenue. And the Rec Commission meeting did meet and discuss it. And you know, going forward, Your Worship, they are looking at aquatic center programs being moved outdoors. For most of that means outdoors to Christina Lake. Well, sometimes it's just a matter of connecting the dots. But perhaps as we think about our DMAF charter and the coming designs that are coming before us, can we somehow recreate a child-friendly beach in Grand Forks? Anyhow, that's it for my report, Your Worship. Sorry for the late entry, and carry on.
I thank you, Councillor Moslin, and I apologize for not having picked it up. I'm not sure how I missed it. And moving further around, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to report that as a result of my attendance to the CAT meeting and the other meeting that Bob Hughes, his group, organizes, I advised them of the resolutions that were released from in camera with respect to the moto, and directed that if they had any questions or wanted further discussion, with apologies to Duncan, I referred them to him. And I think as a result, this is why we had the presentation that we had this afternoon. Other than that, I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Studley.
Yes, I met with the chamber. They pretty much presented what I would say is that they're going to come to council for the parking. I also, what else is going for my notes here? That's it. Oh, the boundary box. I wanted to promote boundary box. So they've got a couple promo videos coming out. And they also want to remind people that boundary box are still things. So keep your receipts from all the local shops. You can bring those to the chamber, and they could give you like 10% of whatever your total was, and you can 10% back in boundary box for participating businesses. So it's a really good deal.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Studley. And Councillor Zielinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But first of all, I would personally like to thank all the people that were doing the sandbagging over this event. I personally used services, and I want to say thank you very much. Baptist Church, what can I say? Just awesome. So I just want to say thank you on a personal note on what was happening during the event. I'd like to also thank all our new grads out there. I see the signs on the front of the high school there, and I wish all of them the best. I don't know what kind of world you're going out to, but I wish all the grads the best. And about the only other thing I have to add, Mr. Mayor, is for all you seniors out there, I might know a guy that might get you an ID that says you're 64. So give me a call, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you. And last but a double banger, Councillor Corlick, both your report and the regional district.
Well, I reported mostly this morning, talked about them, well, the museum did their presentation, which was almost identical to what I was going to do. I also want to congratulate the grads of this year and encourage everyone. I believe they're having a parade on the 20th. So I encourage everybody to get out there and cheer them on and wish them well. I think this will be a graduation to remember because it's so different from anything anyone's ever had. So definitely wish them well. Other than that, I really don't have much more to say. Said it already once today. And thank you to all the people that worked so hard on the flood preparations. And I'm glad you made it through, Mr. Zielinski, without any too many problems. So just take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Can I have a motion to accept council reports? Councillor Corlick, Councillor Moslin, all those in favor? Thank you. We have covered most of the decisions for delegations under B. We have those covered in 6B, motocross, temporary market housing, or Market Street. So is there anything further under delegations?
Yep. So through your worship, from this morning, you had a delegation. Oh, sorry, no, I was thinking Mr. Molnar, but you're covered under the charter for
covered.
that one, yeah.
Yeah.
The only one that you may wish to separate is the request you just received from Ask Wellness in that group as the next discussion.
Yeah, rather than trying to sandwich it in under the other moto
under
issue.
route barriers, et cetera,
Right.
yeah.
Council, you hear that the delegation that we just heard from Moto, are we prepared to make a decision on placing a porta potty and washing station on a location close to the staging area of the ATVs that would be a public area but accessible to Moto residents?
And through your worship, there was also an offer, I guess there was a request and an offer for Ask Wellness to be a conduit on that interim and long-term housing supports in the community and funding. That was kind of the second piece to that.
Right, do you want to split those up?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so the first one being putting the porta potty in. Can I have a motion that would deal with this matter?
Question, Mr. Mayor?
Councillor?
I thought we did this, that I know the wash stations were approved and we gave direction for staff to help install them in the porta potty, so I don't have the resolution in front of me, but I thought we did this already. Not necessarily at that location, I believe it was in City Park or something.
Yeah, we didn't define the locations. It was a responsibility of the staff. Mr. Redfern?
Sorry, through your worship, we defined the locations as where we had put in temporary porta potties, which was downtown, in Charitable Park, and some of those other locations. That's where the hand washing units were permitted. Porta potties were never discussed as something that was going to be provided by Ask Wellness, and Motocross was not an existing location.
Okay, so the floor is open to a motion here to deal with this matter. You heard the presentations by Mr. Hughes. Councillor Moslin?
Okay, thanks, your worship. I guess I'll move the motion, your worship. The first one, and keep it simple. Move that council endorses the placement of a porta potty and hand washing station on the outskirts of the Moto encampment. Okay, that would be, I think that, will that suffice?
I think it will. That simplicity is awesome. And looking for a seconder on that? All right, I will second it. And open for discussion. Councillor Zelinski.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, for me personally, I would rather have the discussion on 7B before I vote on this, basically the voter cross discussion. Would help me with this resolution anyway.
So 7B has to do with where the restricted access areas are that we asked our staff to present us with. So this is a separate issue to that.
Well, it is, but I think they go hand in hand as far as, you know, we heard in the presentation that there seems to be people moving out. You know, is there a better location for these, for the request, you know, other than above Moto? Yeah, just me personally, I'd like to have that Moto discussion before I support your request.
Councillor Korlick?
Just quickly, wasn't there a porta potty in the ATV staging area before, and it was vandalized and abused, so, and it was removed? I believe that happened, so I'd like to,
I don't know that, but I will ask here.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there was an outhouse there. It was owned by the ATV group. They installed it there on permission from the city, and they chose to take it down due to some issues on the site.
Okay.
oh, therefore, nothing's saying it wouldn't happen again, so, okay, thanks.
Further comment? Councillor Moslin and then Councillor Zelinski.
Yeah, there is a major difference, and we heard it described in the delegation, is the increase in outreach workers. That's been significant in that area. You have at least 3, maybe 4 agencies with different outreach workers now making moto a regular stop. My feelings is that there was an outhouse at that site previous, and it was removed. And basically, all we're doing is returning a porta potty and a hand washing station to the benefit of not just moto. And incidentally, the placing of this would be outside the barriers of the proposed barriers. And I certainly do have sympathy with Councillor Zelinski's request to let's do it in order. However, and anyhow, so that's my comment. There's been an increase in outreach workers and supervision in that area, which will probably assist with the management of that facility.
Can I ask then, would it make sense for us to delay this question until after the Moto presentation? I argued it was a separate issue, but I see 2 councillors asking for that. Would it make sense for us to delay this until the other Moto issue of access barriers?
I was the mover, and you were the seconder. I'm quite willing to do that.
I am too. So let's just move it on. Councillor Thompson, did you have something pertinent to this, or should we move?
Well, yeah, I do have a question, a couple of questions. If the city is to do the renting of the porta potty and the installation of a hand washing station, who's liable for any damage? Because it would have to be rented, and who's going to maintain it after it's used, particularly if you're opening it up to all members of the public?
Mr. Redfern.
So through your worship, if this is something council wants to move forward with, I would recommend that you put that on the people who have asked for one of those organizations to provide that and work with BC Housing. Essentially, they're asking for your approval to put it on your land.
Not to necessarily service it or look after it or take liability for it.
That's my understanding, and you could make that clear in the motion if you wanted, that you would allow them to do it, but that you would not be maintaining it or servicing it.
Okay, Councillor Moslin and I have both suspended this motion. Can we move on in the agenda then and bring this back up after we deal with the other Moto issue? I see nods, some of you. Okay. Moving forward then,
We have the seniors from this morning as well.
the seniors issue from this morning, yes. Okay, Council, you recall the 4 questions that were asked or the suggestions that were made by Mr. Bruce. We seem to have fallen on number 2 as a simple invitation to get started, to bring the seniors forward to talk to us more about what they're looking for, and to begin at that point with recommendation number 2. Can I hear that motion from someone? Councillor Corlick has her hand up making a motion. Councillor Zelinski seconds. Opening up to discussion, Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no, I was just gonna move the motion and whatnot, and let's get the people in, let's talk to them and see. I don't know what their thoughts are of fee for service. I know Councillor Muslim says he's going to throw money at it. I'm not, but I do want to support them. So I just want to know what's best for that group, and talking to them is the best start.
Okay, well, that is the first step. Daniel, you wanted to comment?
Just a short question, Mr. Mayor. Can we get a resolution from council on this, like the actual wording? Because this morning we went back and forth between the long version and the short version. If I remember this correct, it's something like that council invite a senior society representative to a future committee of the whole meeting to discuss future options for the society or something.
So it was a modified number 2.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's there for
Good point.
record keeping
Good point.
purposes.
This is what we have up. Is that what we've agreed on as the motion? Councillor?
That's not it?
No, number 2 is fuller than that.
Okay, that's, well, I thought they modified it down to that.
Well,
this
but then it
morning.
changed again.
Okay, well, that was the last version I recorded from this morning.
So that works
That's my point.
for you, Mr. Mayor, we'll pull up number 2 from this morning, we'll put it on the screen.
Okay, pulling up number 2. And again, there was some question of whether this was modified or not. Councillor Moslin made the point of making it very simple. Let's invite them in and get the process started.
Yeah, and then there was an addendum or a slight change to add this, to ask for a fee for service or to discuss a fee for service agreement, and then I believe it shifted back to not discussing necessarily fee for service, but rather future options, so.
Including fee for service.
Yeah.
Okay, council, looking at that number 2, how does that feel? I don't see any hands up. Councillor Moslin.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm, you know, Councillor Zelinski says he's not willing to throw money at it, and we do have 2 fee-for-service agreements that I'm a little bit familiar with. We just saw the quarterly reports of. I believe the Boundary Museum Society, we have a fee-for-service agreement in the range of $80,000 a year, and which is several $1,000s a month, and we have a fee-for-service agreement with the gallery, which I believe is about $130,000 a year, which is over $10,000 a month. I know that we're looking at trying to support a specific seniors organization and using them, but also I really, part of my motivation to throw money in it is that there's a broader need there that I'm hoping that a reinvigorated seniors center, a seniors group can help us solve or find. Anyhow, to help, you know, I'm quite willing just to put item 2 on the floor. Was that what the staff's advice was?
Mr. Redfern.
Through your worship, that's item 2, that's, as it's written right now, is different than what you suggested this morning, Councillor Moslin. Item 2, as it's written right now, talks about providing funding and the group is on their own to find a place to rent. Whereas I believe this morning you indicated you wanted to leave it open and invite them in to talk about fee for service, see if they're interested, but also to leave the door open to other options as well.
Right.
Well, exactly. You know, like what if we do provide them with temporary and then provide them with permanent, the whole fee for service thing would be changed. Again, you know, a fee for service agreement might be different if they were in the basement of the library than if they were in a modular home over somewhere off of 70th. You know, anyhow, but the intent is to get them in and talk about it, to put some onus on them, help, you know, how much would it take, what's available, what do you want, you know, discuss the modular possibility with them as well. I think Councillor Zelinski pointed out the need to get them to the table. Yes, so basically, That's it, those are my comments, Your Worship. I lean out to my colleagues for further guidance on this.
Councillor Thompson.
Just a couple of things. The seniors rented that facility in City Park for $1 a year. And so if we were to entertain discussing a fee for service, what services would they be providing?
Councillor Thompson, did we not get the facility free and the regional district got it free as long as we booked in advance?
Yes, but they rented it out to a number of, like, for weddings.
Anyone who would rent it, yeah.
Anybody that wanted to rent it, yeah. So, yeah, I don't mind meeting with them just to discuss, but to request an amount required to accommodate fee for service, that, to me, that almost indicates that there's an implied agreement that, yeah, we'll give you money, but we're just gonna negotiate some stuff. So I have a bit of an issue with that. I would want to know what they are looking to the city, and what services they would provide, and what they want, but just to invite them to request, that to me, that's putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, so you're in favor of a modified number 2 that makes it simply an invitation to get started with discussions
Absolutely.
with a wide open agenda.
Yeah.
Can we get a motion on the table to deal with this matter?
Daniel has something.
Daniel?
That council invite the senior society representative to a committee of the whole meeting to discuss future options such as a fee-for-service agreement.
Such as? Does that seem acceptable? Councillor Thompson, would you like to make that motion?
I can, but I would rather than one representative, their executive, for instance.
Okay, we can modify that.
Yeah.
And the seconder for Councillor Thompson's motion? I see Councillor Moslin's hand up. Further discussion on this. So we're going to invite them in. The agenda is open. We're going to look at a number of options there, including fee for service and possibly the modular concept.
Councillor Zelinski's waving his hand mad.
I can't see him, but
Thank you.
Councillor
So I take a crack at the resolution without putting too many of those details in.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do number 2, invite the senior society representative to a future council meeting. Go to meeting 2, and go to number 4, consider other options which the society may propose, period.
Okay, we're combining 2 and 4, a simplified number 2 with number 4. How creative of you.
That's what I'm suggesting, where that calls them to say, come in the room and let's look at options.
Okay, that is the new motion on the floor. Councillor Thompson, could you take that addition of number 4 to the simplified motion?
Yep, I like that.
And the seconder on that agrees, Councillor Moslin? Yes, he does. I can see his head moving up and down.
Sure, Your Worship, I'll agree, we have watered it down quite a bit. Originally, staff wanted to know if we wanted to spend money, right? And the money we were going to spend was the money from the insurance.
Right.
And, basically, staff just wanted a green light on that. I don't know if this motion gives it to them, but I'm quite willing to carry on with this process. But I also want to remind staff that I think Mr. Bruce did say that there's a bit of a time thing going here too. That if we were to keep this group upright and functioning, that they would need to see some sort of willingness or commitment of council to provide support.
Mr.
Anyhow,
Redford.
I support the motion with
Okay.
So,
Mr. Redfern.
through your worship, so staff have essentially done what council has asked for. Now this will be back with council to make a decision. If it is a committee of the whole meeting, that will be the meeting in July. That will be the next opportunity they have to attend and to speak with council. So nothing will happen for a month on this.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Well, yeah, I hear what everybody is saying, but there are other facilities that they could potentially meet in there's the Masonic Hall that they might be able to use on a temporary basis, the Legion, the library meeting room if it's big enough. So they do have options available to them, and they must have some money in the bank from operating funds.
No, I don't
So,
think so.
you know, that conceivably could get them to the short term, till we've had an opportunity to meet it and discuss it and come to a conclusion what, if anything, we want to do on their behalf.
Thank you. And that would be a month from now, so all parties have an opportunity to do some planning before they come before council. Council, you ready for a question on this matter? This is combining a simplified number 2 with number 4, the creativity of Councillor Zielinski. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Whew. Getting punchy. All right. And electrical capital budget items. And I'll pass it to Mr. Redfern.
So I'll just take the lead. Council has seen this before during Juliet's quarterly report. This is $30,000 increase to the electrical systems upgrades capital project. This was a mistake during the budget process in which we removed that $30,000 and it should have been left in. This is to correct that, as I believe these items have already been purchased and were purchased before Christmas.
And you can see the motion in front of you that council approves the $30,000 increase in the electrical system. Councillor Thompson.
So move.
And the seconder, Councillor Zielinski. Further discussion? I see none. All those in favor? Carried. That was easy. Good. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, and moving to the next item again, we've deferred a decision on the previous motion of the porta potty and washing station until we address this item on the agenda of the proposed solution for restricting access. Council, you had an opportunity to look at the map and where those restricted access areas are identified. And can I ask Mr. Redfern to introduce it?
Sure. So through your worship, this is some work done between building inspection and public works, and everybody kind of collaborating. Proposes 2 new gates, which we have the materials already at our public works yard, and would just require some time from our mechanic/welder to put together, as well as some no posts, which my understanding, Mr. Bruce, we have in stock the materials required.
That's correct.
So there would be no additional cost other than time to make these installs. This is kind of a first step. We believe it will be successful. However, we may need to gauge the success and come back to council as necessary. But this is looking at restricting access and growth of this camp while still meeting some of our emergency response requirements.
Thank you. And can we identify on that map where the porta potty would go? I think that might be useful in moving to the next.
Behind Councillor Corlick.
Right in that corner, right by our house.
Yeah.
So, in that area.
Somewhere in that parking lot.
Right,
is,
in that
is the
parking
proposed
lot.
area, is my understanding.
Okay, Council, are you ready to make a decision? The motion we're looking for is that Council approves the recommended solutions for restricting access, and that staff would go ahead with their installation. Can I have the motion? Councillor Corlick, and who's the top hand there?
Thompson.
Councillor Thompson. And further discussion on this matter?
Councillor Zielinski.
Councillor Zelinski.
Yeah, thank you. ATV parking lot. For some reason, I have in my mind that it's on city land, but it is actually leased to the ATV group, but we don't have much control over that. Is that correct or not?
License of occupation.
License of occupation?
Okay, not a lease.
No.
Can I jump to the gate on the left side? Whether or not that's on the north side of Fortis's right of way, or whether it'll be just off the road on the south side right away.
Not reading it, go ahead.
Yeah, so through your worship, Dave, I believe the plan was on the north side to ensure that they have access.
That's correct.
Or provide them a key where we cross that access.
It's off the right of way.
Answering that? Thank you. Are you ready for a decision on this matter of approving the restricted access? We have a motion on the floor.
Just a question, if I might. Is that gate to prevent them from taking their motorcycles and whatever and going up through Valley Heights? Is that what the purpose of that gate is?
So through your worship, the gates are really not focused on preventing ATV access or even pickup truck access in some of these areas. It's strictly regarding the camp and council or encampment and council's direction to restrict the growth of that encampment. So the gates are strategically placed to ensure or to try to prevent additional RVs or trailers from being moved into that area. It's not going to stop pickup trucks or ATVs. It might.
Or motorcycles.
Or motorcycles. They will be able to access from the back and from other areas.
Okay, thank you.
Ready for the question on this matter? All those in favor and opposed? Do we have any opposition there? It was late with your Councillor Studley. That was support? Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, and so let's move on to the placement of a porta potty. Now that we've seen the map, you see where the intention would be to put it. And Councillor Moslin and myself had the motion on the table previously. Councillor Moslin, you continue to support this with a motion?
I guess I get it. The time is going on, Your Worship, and my memory is going with it. Perhaps staff could put the motion back up on the screen. Basically, it was just to support the request of Ask Wellness, Anchors, and I believe it was IHA to install a porta potty and a hand washing station on the outskirts of the moto encampment. Yeah, there we go.
Arguing that it's basic health care that we're looking at with this move.
Yeah, Your Worship, you know, really, yeah, whether it's Dr. Bonnie Henry's letter or her, are the guidelines, I think it was an 8-page guidelines for the management of encampments that the delegation did reference this afternoon.
Yes.
Whether it's that or the provincial orders that came much earlier this spring, asking council to support both shelter and food supplies, or just as somebody said, let's just have some compassion and put this. I know that council is worried that if we provide a facility that will lead to the enlargement of the camp. Well, I can't see that happening right now with the barriers that we've just put in place. This is a temporary thing to provide sanitation during the COVID pandemic. It has nothing, much out of that. There's no intent to, certainly council has no intent to provide a permanent encampment at the site.
So
council will support it. Thank you.
Can I clarify Mr. Redfern's comments that we are approving it, but we're not looking at paying for it or servicing it or being liable for it? Just to be clear, our approval is for them to put it in, for Ask Wellness to install it.
I don't know, that's certainly the intent of my motion, your worship.
And my second on the same basis.
You know, that it's the outreach workers that are up there. We're gonna help, look after this, just like they're starting to look after the whole thing. You know, it's been a very good hands-on program that other agencies of the province as well as MPOs have done. And I feel that we should do what the province has requested of us and support those efforts. It's not up to us to do it. It's just not up to us to stop it.
Okay, and I see they're adding that to the motion, sort of the clarification of our responsibilities at this point. And moving down the list, Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Friendly amendment then. I'll just read it out loud. The council endorses the placement of a porta potty and hand washing station on the outskirts of the Moto encampment for social service and agencies at no cost to the city, to be placed no longer than September 15th, 2020.
I'm wondering why you would want to put that September date in when we don't know what the future holds.
Well, exactly, and that's my problem is, as Councillor Mossman said, if it is for the COVID situation, that could be 6 years. Who knows, that virus is going to be floating around for quite a while. So if it is temporary, as Councillor Mossman said, how temporary? Let's put a date on it, and then if things do not change, we can always come back and reissue the motion.
True enough. If that would get your vote on this, Councillor, I would support putting a date on that of September 30th.
Okay, so some clarification also is, I heard Bob Hughes say, I think it was Bob that said, but not on Moto itself. So if it is for everybody, I guess, or if it's for these people especially, why isn't it on Moto's site? And then if it has to be off-site, then the discussion says, well, is it 20 meters off-site? Is it 200 meters off-site? Is it 2 miles off-site? Like, what's acceptable, I guess? Because I don't understand why it's not on-site if it is for these.
Mr. Redfern, bail us out here.
Sure, so through your worship, I think that they would provide the services on the site if that's the direction the council would like to go. I think the intent and the strategy was the council may be more open to the idea of providing services for the general public as opposed to for this specific group of individuals. But I think they will be acceptable to either. They would be happy to have some kind of amenities close to the camp.
So reading council's previous intentions, it seemed like it was more likely to get passed if it was off the site. And Councillor Corlick? You're muted. We're missing it.
Oh my. Okay, I support a time limit as well, and it can be adjusted. And I think if it's really and truly, and the intention is for the residents or people living at Moto, really isn't for the hikers and stuff, because honestly, I wouldn't be using it. And, you know, so then put it in Moto. Is it just access that's going to cause a problem for hauling it in and cleaning it and getting it out? Is that what the issue is on that one?
I don't think so. I believe that it was council's reluctance in past discussions to see those amenities as attracting people to the site or making it more attractive.
Well, just on a follow-up, if we're restricting new people coming in now, then that really shouldn't be an issue because there will be no more people moving in.
Yes, that's true. Councillor Moslin, would you like to change this to placing it within the site of Moto?
Your worship, if I think we might have to have some common sense here. I'm believing it in the hands of the people who are going to manage it. So perhaps if I just strike instead of on the outskirts of the moto encampment, just put the word at.
Okay.
Placement of a porta potty and hand washing station at the moto encampment. And then leave it up to the social services agencies to decide where the optimum place might be for their supervision and for its safe use.
And would you add the time limit on it?
If you want it. I sure hope we don't have a pandemic for 6 years.
Okay, and so
I really don't.
making
If
it,
you want to stay until September, it might be, yeah, okay, that's fine by me, but by the end of September, you've got a whole new climate that you have to deal with anyways. I'm wondering what
and winter.
hand washing station would look like anyways.
Okay, and
Want to put September, that's fine.
And I would agree to that. So we have a motion that reads, council endorses the temporary placement of a porta potty and hand washing stations at the moto encampment by social service agencies until September the 30th at no cost to the city. And I second it. Can we? Councillor Corlick, you still have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure 2020 was in there.
Great minds think alike.
Okay, all right. Ready for the question on this? Councillor Zelinski, you have your hand up still?
Yes. I hear, the funding is coming from COVID for this, COVID response from the province. We've already acknowledged that there's 5 people living there. We've just heard a presentation saying that sanitation is paramount to this population. I guess what I'm struggling with is just because somebody's funding it today and it may be there till September, if those people stay there, which, well, the resolutions speak for themselves, I guess, and they end up being taken away, I think that's a bigger disservice than not giving it to them at all. All of a sudden they get used to a porta potty and washing station, and when they need it, they say, oh, sorry, we're yanking it out. That's what I'm struggling with personally as far as whether I should support this or not.
Councillor Zelinski, you're the one that's reminding us that let's not get stuck in the mess we've been in for 2 years. Let's have a winter plan here. And so that may be eclipsed by a winter plan.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the winter plan first.
You bet. Okay, Council, are you ready to vote on this motion? All those in favor? And opposed? 1, 2, 3. Motion is defeated. I think that's distressing, but that's the decision of council. And moving on, we have the temporary Market Avenue closure.
We had, sorry, through your worship, we have one other.
Where are we here? Oh.
Under from Ask Wellness, they had also.
Right, exactly.
Provided council an option to work on some interim locations within the community.
Can we phrase that into a motion?
I think Daniel has captured what they asked.
He's working on it.
You may have it better.
Yeah, the Ask Wellness to work with staff to find an interim and long-term housing solutions and some funding opportunities. And I think they'd even talked about an operator as well.
Right, you put some questions in front of Mr. Hughes, basically, that is creating our desire to put this in motion form to move us forward with dealing with BC Housing. And we'll wait till that motion comes up here. It's being crafted.
And I think, sorry, through your worship, the question is, does council want Ask Wellness to work on our behalf with staff to try and find some interim housing options? I guess that'd be the first step.
That's the overview of it.
And bring back those options to council.
Yes, we do. I mean, I'm assuming we will. Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So unless someone knows something that I don't, do we have a provider?
At this point in time, we have only one potential one in town, and that's Boundary Family Services, who are going through a direction finding workshops over the last month. I'm not sure when that will be completed.
Would it not be wise then to find out whether our only provider actually wants to take this on, and whether low-cost housing is in their future, after their strategic planning session, and we know whether or not we actually have an operator before we go running around in circles?
Well, we're asking Mr. Hughes in this motion to basically put that on his list of to do in looking at that as one of the issues we face.
Yeah, we still don't have a provider, I guess, is my thing, but, okay.
And do we have that motion yet?
I'll try
Give it a
this.
shot.
That council ask Wellness to work with staff on finding an interim and or long-term housing solution, and to research associated funding and operator options.
And I think we just tag it to provide that information back to council.
Yeah.
Provide that back to council. Can we have that motion? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Moslin. Everybody's clear on what we're asking? Probably Rod will need to see it on the screen. Councillor, I mean. Give us a minute here.
You want to read
So
that one
basically,
more time?
I've got it right, I'm sorry to jump in here, but
Or text it to me?
we're not committing to anything, and we're just Ask Wellness to do the bunch of legwork for us.
Yes, we are. We're asking them to basically explore those issues that we put in front of him.
I think if I can, and through your worship,
Yeah, jump
and
in.
maybe just some context. You know, right now, as far as I know, and again, I've only been here about 3 months now, there's nobody working on interim housing or long-term housing solutions, and council has identified, and asked some questions regarding shelters. This is a group that provides some of those services in other communities and also has links into other groups such as Anchors, etc., and could do that legwork and essentially provide council with that information for council to make those decisions. Otherwise, I don't know that anybody's working on it right now.
No, and that is an issue. No one's taking the lead. Ask Wellness is offering at this point to do some work for us, and this would be the motion.
Yeah, can I just jump in here, Mr. Mayor, because I thought our social services group had that mandate in their terms of reference.
The social services group basically has no legs. They have nobody to do the work. And I think that's where we come down to finding someone who's willing to take up the challenge.
Okay, so if I'm out of order here, just say so. Wouldn't it be better then if the social services group, which again, we agreed to be the terms of reference for them, that they're the ones that are involved with Ask Wellness and get their details, come back to that group so all that the agencies can say, hey, what do we think about this before we take it to council?
Councillor Moslin, you sit on that group. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship, I don't know, this is the second ask request that we keep asking people to come up with things on this solution. We already have an ask going forward to the next Social Services Advisory meeting, which is June 24th, sorry, about the whether or not those social service agencies will continue to supply their services during a long-term pandemic. I suspect that they will come back with the answer yes. I don't know if I support this, although it's not really. Basically, all we're doing is asking people to ask Ask Wellness. They might not. They might decide they might not want to help us. After all, the last I heard from Ask Wellness is that they were going to leave at the end of June, which leaves them 15 days to do this. If the intent of Mr. Hughes is to stick around past the end of June, then that's a great offer. I wouldn't want to look that gift horse in the mouth. anyhow, I support this resolution, although it is kind of a wishy-washy thing. I'm hoping, and I have my fingers crossed, that Boundary Family Support Services is going to be able to wrap up their strategic planning this coming week. July 17th is when I was told they were going to wrap it up. And be prepared that Boundary Family Support Services will be able to report to council and to the following Social Services Advisory Group meeting on June 24th what their intentions are. So I guess, long story short, I hope in 2 weeks to know if we have a provider or not.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, we can ask Wellness. So I support the motion.
We can ask them. At the same point, we just turned down what he urged was a very important and urgent need in the placing of a porta potty and wash stations there. So our credibility at this point is certainly questionable with Ask Wellness. Councillor Corlick.
No, actually, I have my hand up.
Oh, we have 2 hands up there, but if you were first, Councillor Thompson, I definitely don't want to jump queue.
Just a couple of quick things. First of all, instead of saying ask wellness, why don't we request ask wellness?
This is semantics.
And the other thing is that the Social Services Advisory Group is an advisory group to council. And so I think if the wish of council is to work with Ask Wellness, at the end of June, it's Barney that's no longer going to be here. But I think Ask Wellness is still going to be available to the community, but not with those necessary with the services that were being provided. So, yeah, I would like to, I support this motion and would encourage other councillors to support it as well.
Thank you. And Councillor Corlick.
I guess my only concern, and it's not that I don't support the resolution, my concern is, if we do all this work, our staff and Ask Wellness and whoever else, but still don't have a provider, then everybody's done all this work for what? You know, that's my concern on that. A provider is the key to the whole thing, as far as I can see.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, you still have your hand up for rebuttal.
No, I'll take it down right away.
Okay. Are you ready for a question on this motion? All those in favor? And opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving then down to temporary market closure. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
All right, the next item of business is the Market Avenue plan. Now there's a fairly detailed resolution. I won't read it out, but it basically outlines what you heard today in a presentation on the Market Avenue issues. You've heard the pros and cons from both sides. Can I have a motion for the resolution? Councillor Thompson moves it and seconded by Councillor Corlick, and open for discussion.
Councillor Zielinski.
Councillor Zielinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to throw this out there and someone tell me if I'm wrong or not. I've been told that we have a few people that are enjoying staying the night over at Lois Hagen Park. Obviously that's not acceptable. We're not expecting once that road is closed that they finally pitch their tent into the market. Is that a concern or an issue?
Mr. Redfern,
So
please.
through your worship, one of the concerns that Daniel has discussed with the groups is, access to that downtown area after hours, and if, the program is slow to gain momentum and it is blocked off, you know, managing those areas to ensure that there's, you know, not increased risk of theft or things like that. So that is something that has been considered, Councillor. And my understanding is, as we work with the group regarding the temporary barricade structures, that we want to provide access to our security contractors so they could still cruise through that area and ensure that the security is there after hours.
I haven't heard of people moving into Lois Hagan Park, but if your concern is security in a closed-off market, I think that Mr. Redfern has addressed that. And Councillor Moslin.
Yes, Your Worship. I guess my concern is, I have a hard time supporting this motion. I really think it's a bit of overkill in the sense that we have very few people downtown right now. I'm not sure that giving very few people a lot more room is going to bring more people. Nonetheless, Your Worship, I could support this motion if we put into it something that Ms. Dinsdale said she would. That is, they would construct a survey for the public and the merchants and take regular assessments of the assessments of the effectiveness of the closure.
Yeah, that's a safety valve in terms of it not working, I'm assuming as well.
Well, it is an experiment. Yeah, sometimes they don't work out. But at least, you know, if we have a survey or something, we would know if it was working or not. You know, if it all boils down to what the customer thinks, and that seems to be the case, then we better be asking the customers fairly frequently. Thanks, Your Worship.
And Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can't support that with respect to Councillor Moslin. It's the business community that are going to govern this themselves. And, you know, I don't think we need to put into our resolutions that we require them to do a survey of themselves and their customers. That, we don't belong in that. That's managing, and I'm not interested in doing that. I think they're quite capable of doing that themselves. And so it's a trial run from the 29th of June to the end of September. It can be revisited. I'm sure that we will get updates from the chamber through our rep. And they're all adults, they're all grown-ups, and they're going to know whether or not it's working or not. So I'm not interested in getting involved in that. I just think that let it go, see how it works out, revisit it at the end of September, and you know, let the chamber do their business people. They're not going to do anything that's not beneficial to themselves.
I heard Councillor Moslin ask them and suggest it was a good idea, and they agreed, so I don't think we're forcing them to do that. I think they might have really appreciated the idea from Councillor Moslin.
I don't think we need it in any resolution.
No, I don't think we do either. Councillor Moslin, you had your hand up, and then Councillor Zielinski.
I guess my concern, Your Worship, is that we're not dealing with a unified group. I hope that they build unity if we acquiesce to this experiment, that they go ahead and build that unity, because that's really what's going to save the town.
Agreed.
Not whether or not there's pedestrian space or not. Anyhow, Your Worship, that was my concern. Oh, one other point. We're quite willing to ask Boundary Family Support Services for lots of details about their shelter. We do ask other groups for numbers, and I believe that we should be prepared. That, you know, we should have some hard numbers when we're asked to make a fundamental change to our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zielinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add to Councillor Moslin's comments that for me personally, when this comes in front of us next year, without those stats, and it's just a good feeling, that's not going to work for me. So I'm I'm gonna want to see more, and whether it's in the motion or not, that doesn't matter, but, yeah, it's gotta be more than just a feeling. But my real question is, I'd like to see an out clause. If something goes real bad sideways, that we can back out of this arrangement, you know.
And, you know, I read an out clause into that in terms of their 6-week review that they themselves have suggested, that if it's not working, we can all get back to the table and replan what we're doing there. Councillor Corlett.
Unfortunately, this has some hard dates in it, June 29th, September 30th. Those are hard dates, so I don't see an out in it right now.
All right, and Councillor Corlick?
Well, they did suggest that they were going to be doing, checking every 6 weeks to see how the progress is. And I mean, I respect that, and the fact that they are going to be surveying, and I do believe they will come up. Maybe they won't be able to say, well, we had 100 people here today and only 10 tomorrow, because that's just how business goes. But I think they will be tracking that, because it's important to them too. They're not going to be doing something that's, their business is declining because of this road closure. They're doing it to see where it's going to take them, and that hopefully it's going to be on the positive side of things. So yeah, they'll be tracking it pretty closely. And I think the people involved, they are very, very much aware of this. This is a significant adjustment and change to the whole community. So I think we need to put ourselves behind them and support them through this. I certainly do.
Council, are you ready for the question on this matter? It's a resolution on the table and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3.
Did we have a mover and a seconder?
We have a mover and a seconder. We did. I think we had Council Corlick and Thompson.
The motion is as is, correct?
The motion is as is on the table. Councillor Corlick and Thompson have seconded it. And calling for the motion again, all those in favor?
No, I think Rod wanted to say something before we vote.
Rod?
No out clause then? Is that what I heard? Is no out clause?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay, all those in favor? And opposed? Councillor Zelinski didn't vote, which means he voted in favor, so the motion passes. Thank you, Council. Whew. Falling apart here. All right, and the next item of business is the temporary use permit to accommodate a drive-in theater.
No, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Temporary use permit to oh, the distillery, we've taken that out.
7D. There's a temporary expanded liquor service area.
Okay. Cross that as well. All right, the local government approval for temporary expanded liquor services. There are 2 motions involved in this. Council, you've read them. Can we open discussion on this matter? And Councillor Zelinski?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not so worried about the issue itself, but the background information concerned me, where it's suggesting that the LCRB, the Liquor Control Board, actually does ask us whether we approve of some of these situations, especially if they're in a neighborhood that we might not want them in. And I was, especially when we were talking about the distillery across from the high school, I didn't think that the city council had any input or any comment as far as whether the neighborhood, regardless of the zoning, whether the neighborhood can support a liquor establishment. Is that true? Are we asked on any new liquor establishments?
Councillor Redfern.
Don't say that.
The kiss of death.
Yeah, so-
Mr. Redfern.
Yeah, so through your worship, just so I'm clear, you're asking whether the Liquor Control and Regulation Branch asks the city for permission or for feedback regarding any new liquor license?
Oh, yeah, so I'm on the agenda package, I'm on the top of page 31. Currently, the city reviews all new and amended LCRB license applications. And especially with all the flack we've got about a distillery across from a high school, I was under the impression that we did not have any input into where liquor establishments are placed.
So through your worship, I can't speak for the practice here, so I'll ask the lawyers to talk about the past practice when a new establishment is opening.
I haven't been around for any of the new food primary. Those are all existing liquor primary licenses.
And that was a restaurant before.
So
Laundry.
So what I can tell you about my previous position and the process there, because nobody's been here, I guess, for a new liquor license.
I was here for it.
Have been,
Yeah,
and
you,
it was never brought to council, it was just done.
But that's,
That,
I'm
no,
sorry.
here, so, thanks, that's all I had.
Okay, through the mayor, I think that liquor primary is different than they're different.
types of licenses.
They're different types of licenses, yeah, but for liquor primary licenses and for liquor licenses, I think for food primary, I do believe those do come to council for approval. And we haven't had any new ones because they're apparently really hard to come by these days, so we haven't actually had any new ones since we've been through the process. But these expansions are for existing liquor and food primary establishments, is my understanding. It doesn't extend to distilleries or anything like that.
And further, we can request that we get notified whenever they're providing a special occasions license, a one-off, and there's a certain number that are permitted annually. I think it's like 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
However, we're not asked for feedback, we're just notified about it. If somebody is expanding their liquor license premises, in my previous life, those always came to council, whether it be for a golfing event or something like that, and council can delegate the authority to approve those. I don't know if that authority's been delegated here or not, we haven't come across one, so I haven't seen it yet.
And these motions basically bring it to council.
Yeah, and so the purpose of these motions right now in front of us is the liquor control and regulation branch, cannabis, essentially have said, we're trying to remove any barriers to some of these organizations from trying to regain or recoup some of the revenue that has been lost. And so we're giving you an opportunity to pre-approve liquor primary and manufacturer establishments within their jurisdiction who want to expand their services. But in saying that, they are not permitting the establishments to expand the number of people, their occupancy. They're just allowing them to expand, maintain the same occupancy, but expand in order to provide for social distancing and 6-foot gaps. So we're not actually expanding the service itself, we're just expanding the physical area so that they can social distance within it.
Okay, that makes it clear. Councillor Thompson, are you making the motions?
No, I just have a quick question. So these resolutions have nothing to do with the ability for the consumption of alcohol on the street? Like if one of the restaurants that was licensed to serve liquor, could one of their patrons sit and have their drink on their patio outside?
So through your worship, this is definitely expanding those areas, and in most cases, those areas are contained within a building right now and would need to spill out either onto a sidewalk, maybe into a parking lot or an area like that. So this would expand the licensed area and could include outdoor spaces.
Thank you.
Can we have the motion, can we put these two motions together? Resolution 1 and 2?
Sure, they're long and wordy and that's my fault, I apologize.
Council, can I have these motions? Councillor Corlick, Councillor Thompson, these motions are on the floor. You've had some explanation of how they would affect us, but it looks like more accountability built into them for council. Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One question just on Councillor Thompson's line of thought. I'm expecting that liquor control board has some sort of regulations as far as defining, especially if they're out in the street, as far as they have to define sort of the corners of their site. Is that true or not?
Through your worship, in my experience, the liquor control board has some very defined and firm regulations around liquor premises and require delineation. They also require sometimes security or the ability to ensure that minors can't enter in some of these areas
Yes.
depending on the type of license. You will have seen it probably at Canifest or some of those locations I haven't been at, but there's usually clear delineation to ensure that minors can't access those areas depending on the type of license.
Right. Okay, council, you ready for the motion? This is both motion 1 and 2. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Okay, and that makes, we've removed E.
Correct.
You have Councillor Zelinski as a question.
Councillor Zelinski?
I'll just use myself for this next item.
Alright.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 councillors. And we are on to the drive-in theater. Temporary use permit. Just waiting for my computer to catch up here. The council grants a temporary use permit to Canifest Music Festival in LTD on land zoned residential R2. Under the terms of the temporary use permit. Can I have that motion? Councillor Corlick, Councillor Thompson, and discussion. Councillor Studley, are you there? You're back. And we didn't vote yet. You ready for a motion on this matter? This is whether to approve the temporary use permit for a 3-year period. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And just through your worship, I just need to check with Dolores. Did we receive a request to waive the TP fee?
No.
And do we say 50 cars in the temporary use permit, or are we allowing that to be determined by the health regulations?
By the regulations.
Okay, because it has moved up, I know, for a number of communities to 100 cars. All right, the next item of business is the lease of the lots to Raven Place. And again, you've got a proposal in front of you that basically leases the 2 inside lots with the 2 outside lots, 1, 2, 3, 4, as a buffer area. So can I have that motion to authorize entering into a 3-year lease agreement with the option to renew? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor anybody. Okay, Councillor Moslin seconds it. Okay, so opening for discussion on this matter. Did we invite back Councillor Zelinski, or
He's back on the screen, but possibly not in front of his computer. But his microphone is on, so.
okay. Should we give him any time here? Councillor Zelinski, are you hearing us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So we have the motion on the floor for the 3-year lease of those lots, 2 of the 4 lots, the 2 center lots, with the outside lots being considered a buffer at this point. And I understand from Mr. Redfern that he has had some discussions with the operators of Raven Place and that they're acceptable with this arrangement. Did you want to comment to it?
Yeah, and I'll pass that over to Dolores. She had the conversations with Boundary Family Services. The only point I'll make also, and I believe I was asked by a councillor, is This essentially is a $1 lease for 3 years. There's no essentially, there's no fee for this lease. I don't think we had that in the resolution, but that was also part of it. And Dolores, she spoke with Boundary Family Services, and they felt that they could work within the parameters of this opportunity.
Comments, Councillor Zelinski?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there was a comment of an out clause in the lease. Is that there?
There's, through the mayor, there's always an out clause.
Yes, I was gonna say, there's always an out clause.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
So through your worship, typically we include usually a 30-day or depending on the extent and how robust it is, a period of time, a notice period at the city's discretion.
Thank you. Councillor Moslin?
Thank you, Your Worship. Is there, I wasn't sure, there's a lot of discussion about public access to this amenity. Is that part of this agreement? Do we have to write it in? It is public land, we are leasing it on very generous terms. It would seem to me it would behoove both the residents and the public at large if there was at least a gate in the back along 70th in order to allow egress, pedestrian egress in and out from the facility. That's my question. Is there public access?
So through your worship, that is a option or included in the option section and would be an amendment to the original or the current recommendation. And they are open to that idea, is my understanding with our discussions.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you. Through you, staff, why a lease as opposed to a license of occupation like we have with the ATV club?
It just depends on the circumstances and the liability, and sometimes a lease works better. And generally with license of occupation, like with the ATV club and with the BMX club, and that it's generally open public use. So the Trail Society manages the trails, but they're open to the general public. And same with the ATV club manages and has a license of occupation for the staging areas, but that's open to the public. And so generally when they're wide open to the public, we do a license of occupation. We felt like this would be better as a lease agreement. It would be a firm document with a lease agreement.
And to build on that through your worship, this is a defined area, whereas many of the license to occupy, they're blended, like with Creme Holdings and some of those other areas where it's kind of on city and through different parcels, etc. Whereas this is a defined parcel.
Okay, so maybe I missed it. This will not be open to the public. It'll be just for Raven Place.
So, through your worship, as it's written right now, it would just be for Raven Place unless council would like to amend it to include a gate or access on the north side of the property.
I could see that, causing some security issues for Raven Place. They have pretty much controlled access to the whole site. And in terms of its use, I'm not sure we want to be inviting the general public through a back door. Councillor Zelinski, I guess I was pointing at you, you brought the issue up. You're good. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good, thanks.
Okay, and are we ready for a vote on this matter? The resolution is on the floor. All those in favor? And opposed? We have unanimous consent. Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the DMAF charter. And this certainly, everybody's getting tired here. We've been 7 hours at this already today. I'd like to cut to the chase on this. I think we're all concerned about the timelines in particular on this. And I'm wondering if we can address that directly in terms of our attention to issues of bank stabilization and where it is on our agenda of items. Councillor Moslin in particular, you've had a good look at this, and I think you've raised some concerns about where this is in terms of our overall plan for addressing flooding. And so I'm gonna open it up to Mr. Redfern to open this up and to Justin.
Yeah, so through your worship, you have a recommendation in front of you to approve the charter. The charter itself has priorities identified within it, and in approving the charter, you are also approving those priorities. Justin does have a resolution if council feels a need to respond to Mr. Molnar's request this morning. He does have a resolution that preserves the DMAF project charter itself, but also responds to Mr. Molnar's request this morning and essentially blends the two without, I guess, reprioritizing, but trying to do it within conjunction. And maybe I'll flip it to Justin from there. Do you have that resolution?
I do, so we can pull it up here in a second.
Councillor Moslin and Zelinski, are you willing to wait to hear for this resolution in terms of addressing concerns?
Certainly, your worship.
Just go right to the very last slide. Okay. Just while Kevin's pulling that up, I have to apologize to council. In the charter draft that was sent you, the documentation, page number 7 unfortunately included our marked up version, so it was probably a little confusion to you. That's the project goal. So my apologies, Kevin can put up the correct version, but that is the one change, so no mistake, that's 100% my fault. So as Duncan was referring to, we have gone to great lengths to setting up the priorities that council voted on a long time ago, or we brought to council a long time ago. But obviously things have changed in regards to the 19th Street, specifically Les Molnar's property and the properties south of there as well. So what we were suggesting was to continue on with the prioritization as written in the project charter, but if council so wishes, we could adopt this resolution in front of you that says, notwithstanding those priorities, given the changing conditions, we could try to attack the 19th Street issue as quickly as possible. Now, there are a few constraints around that, but at this point, I think I'll just let council read that resolution and then we can discuss in detail.
Has everyone had a chance to read it?
So just following from the mayor's question, is everybody good to go? Is there questions? Councillor Zelinski?
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to make that pitch for the erosion comment. You know, we're not going to fix all the erosion. There is erosion on the kettle. It hasn't been identified by DMAF projects. So I would, when we talk about erosion in this document, I don't want to tell people that we're going to do something when we know we're not. So we know that we're going to have erosion mitigation on those areas that we got funded for. We know we're not going to do erosion mitigation on ones that we were not funded for. And whether it's the people in Johnson Flats on the I'm gonna say the east end, Gordy Shaw's place, Barry's place, they've got erosion. We know we're not going to do anything there. So if we could reword that to erosion as defined in the DMAF program or whatever the case, because yeah, we're saying something that we're not going to do. Is my point of view.
And you're comfortable with adding that in there, Justin?
Yeah, I have no issue. I think that makes perfect sense.
I think, Justin, a couple things that we want to make really clear, and I was just looking for the notes I wrote down this morning, but who knows where they went, is that we cannot guarantee that this will be completed prior to next year's freshet. We're gonna do everything we can, provided council approves this, including direct awarding and some of those other pieces. However, there are forces outside of our control, including provincial, federal, First Nations consultation, that will dictate the schedule. We're just expediting everything within our control on this project. And I see Graham has a comment.
Through the mayor, thank you. So just thinking back to the presentation from this morning and the sequencing of items, this includes our involvement as city staff to, potential direct award, priority allocation, and execution. One of the requests, and I think given the relationship we have with the funders, the regulatory authorities, and First Nations, an action to for council, I think, to be sending a request to initiate is probably one of the items as well. So initiate those collaborations or supports or whatever are needed. So I'm not sure what the language is there, but that action to initiate the dialogue with the funders and the approving authorities to make sure that this is possible.
Yeah, I think what Graham is speaking to is ultimately there is a process that we must follow in DMAF. And if we do not follow that process, so First Nations consultation, public consultation, and obviously the permitting processes, we will not be eligible to receive DMAF funding, which I think everybody could probably agree that we just couldn't proceed with that if that was the case. So I just want to bring that up, that there are those constraints that Duncan spoke to. They are significant. There's 150 days of permitting. 60 days of that is receipt of the design once it's complete. And then 90 days of that is just for the decision-making process. So those things that are completely out of our control. As it stands right now, all things considered, best case scenario, we could probably start this project in March of next year, and it would probably be a 2 to 3 month project. But if any of those things get delayed, then obviously we would be into freshet next year, and that's a whole different kettle of fish.
So there seems to be a role for council in expediting things and moving this forward in terms of asking government to be more reasonable and understand the critical timeframes that we're facing here, so that we would be in a role where we could go to government and look at some of those permitting and consultation periods and ask for them to be shortened wherever they can.
I believe Councillor Zielinski has a question.
Councillor Zielinski?
Yeah, I guess, so is there any changes to the erosion thing? I just want to know which way I'm going to vote on this thing. Is I guess I'm looking at the guiding principles of the first one. It says that we're going to reduce the overland flooding and erosion risk to the residents of Grand Forks. That sounds like a pretty big task to me.
So I think that we need to deal with this resolution and then go back to the charter. Am I losing it here?
This is in the charter, that's why I'm asking.
This is modifying the charter.
The erosion change would be modifying the charter, but since we're voting on the charter, and under the charter, 1.4 guiding principles says that we're going to reduce the overland flood and erosion risks to all the residents of Grand Forks, which I don't believe is feasible. And I don't like telling people something that I know that we're not going to do. So I just need to know whether changes are going to be made in that or not.
So through your worship, I would agree, Councillor Zielinski. I think tightening that wording up is more accurate in regard, it's truly accurate in regards to the erosion that we are doing relative to DMAF. So I have no issues with doing that. Ultimately, that's a council decision, but I think making that change to the project charter, I think makes a lot of sense.
Just a quick question, Councillor. While you're looking at that, Councillor Zielinski, the last line, I think you might have added, or council added in there, reduce erosion risk and increase floodplain resilience at key sites in the boundary. Do you think that covers it off, or would you strengthen that?
Well, and that's my problem is, I don't know who's saying that they're key sites, and I don't even know where these sites are. I saw a little map with a whole bunch of RDKB thoughts on, but I couldn't relate that back to any of the projects themselves. my biggest, one of the biggest concerns is that only $2 million to deal with all the erosion in the RDKB from here to Big White at just $2 million. Yeah, you're not going to do much. You know, left of the erosion project, you tell me is $1 million plus, pretty close right there.
Yes.
So.
Page 12. Yeah, through your worship, page 12, Councillor, of the charter, has a legend and identifies the key sites.
Yeah, and I guess, other than that map I see in the top corner with all those dots, I don't know what those projects are. Are they riprap? Are they replanting? Are they, all those dots are gonna be done in $2 million? Is this what I'm being told?
Graham.
Through the mayor, thank you. So there's two issues. One, what's identified in the maps in the rural areas outside of the city are potential riparian restoration sites, and they're identified in the program as areas of risk, but they haven't actually been vetted with thorough analysis, and they haven't been vetted for if they're fundable. So they're potential sites. And the second part, and I think this relates to your comment about the language or the expectation about what's doable with erosion protection. Only certain types of projects are able to be funded through the DMAF funding, and the type of work that needs to be done is also constrained. So some kind of language about erosion, protecting from erosion risk within constraints or something like that to identify that it's not a global fix-all erosion, but there's several constraints, a lot of opportunities, but it's a lot of constraints, especially on private land.
Yeah, and through all this stuff, we're not even guaranteed that you'll get Section 11 approvals for some of that stuff. So, yeah, something that sort of puts a box around this, that's what I'm looking for.
Councillor Moslin.
Whew, finally. Okay, look, I just want to reiterate that this work on the west side of Johnson Flats is within the original DMAF scope of works. This is not new. All that Les Molnar is asking is to move the project up in our work timeline. Justin has done an incredible amount of work in trying to schedule this project over the next 3 or 4 years. And I really appreciate it, but I also really appreciate, Justin, that you have come forward to us with this resolution. That we should, try at least to initiate immediate action to preserve what we might lose. I guess without knowing that I support this draft resolution and would be willing to move it or whatever, and thank you for it. Having said that, I was prepared to take a long look in the charter at section 110, project prioritization. Because I certainly appreciated the amount of work and effort that went into that analysis. But I was basically going to say that the Johnson's Flat Bank Protection Program, which is work package number 5 in that, probably has a higher economic risk than was given in terms of both private property and city infrastructure, because there is water and sewer service not very far on the other side of that house. And anyhow, but I certainly support and I appreciate the fact that staff, from Justin to the fire chief to the CAO, have gone out to Mr. Molnar, and the nice thing is it doesn't feel quite so alone anymore. And I do encourage council to pass a resolution endorsing some sort of immediate action plan.
And do we have a seconder for Councillor Moslin's motion? Councillor Zelinski seconds it. So, this is changing the priorities, but not changing the charter to any great extent. So I hope that we can pass this and then deal with the charter as the next motion. Mr. Redfern.
So just to move things along, one other piece, Mr. Mayor, that you mentioned was maybe a number 4, that was Mayor and Council submitting a letter to the provincial or federal government in order, or requesting to expedite the permitting and other procedural pieces, which we would draft up on your behalf and submit that.
An excellent idea, and I think we can do more than simply write a letter.
Sure. Mayor and Council, yeah.
Councillor Zelinski?
Thank you. I just want to clarify that I hope from Councillor Wasman's comments that I'm not suggesting that 19th Street projects are not on the list. In fact, I'd even submit that they should be ahead on the priority list than Granby Road. Just as long as it's clear that all I'm looking for is to narrow that charter and our words to the projects that we know, and this doesn't, the scope of this program doesn't blow out, I guess.
Okay, are we ready for the motion here? We've added at the bottom that Mayor and Council communicate with the province and lobby for expedited approvals. We have it seconded, and I would ask for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, and now moving to the charter. So as somewhat modified, I guess, we would consider this motion as being added to the detail of the charter. Justin, would that?
I could add that on as an appendix.
I think as an appendix to our commitment at this point. Can we have the motion to approve the charter? With Councillor Thompson and Councillor Moslin. Further discussion on the charter? You've seen all kinds of pieces of it. Councillor Moslin first, then Councillor Zelinski.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and I want to thank Justin. As I reread the charter, I really did appreciate the fact that he had been listening to council and took our suggestions to heart. I do see parts of those suggestions in the new charter. There is a little bit of confusion though as to which version of the charter we're looking at. Just be mindful of that, because the corporate officer sent out one version, the agenda has another. Anyhow, I understand how these things go. And I must say though that the process, thank you so much, Justin, for your thorough and professional analysis of this myriad task ahead of this council and the next. Okay, whoops, and so that we can better get a handle on this, and your demonstration of flexibility over 19th Street. So I do support the adoption of the charter. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Zelinski and friend. See, somebody loves you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's love. I got cookie in my hand. No, just as long as we're gonna put some parameters around the erosion thing, I have no problem supporting this. And also very good work, Justin. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Council.
All right, Council, on that note, can I ask for the question here? We are approving the charter with the addition of the decisions we made today. All those in favor? Approved? Carried. Thank you. Hard work there, Justin. And I think sensitive to the 19th Street issue. And bringing us down to bylaws, we have the definitions for restaurant and charitable nonprofit food service. Can we have the motion? Council gives first and second reading to these bylaw amendments and authorize staff to proceed with the legislative requirements for public notification. Can we have that motion, Councillor Zelinski?
Sure. get it on the floor that way.
Councillor Moslin seconds it. And open for discussion, Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So I tried to make this point last time, I'll try and make it again. We have an existing bylaw, actually all written up, presented to us. We have existing resolutions saying that we want a public meeting on these definitions, yet we're only dealing with this one on a community kitchen. To me, that's a waste of taxpayers' dollars. We should be dealing with all of them at the public hearing because, well, let's face it, community kitchen or courtesy kitchen is already done. We're going to be hit with the shelter this winter, and we still don't have a definition of what a shelter is. So, yeah, just want to make that point that we have all the documentation, paperwork there just to carry it forward, but for some reason we're not. And I think that's not doing the taxpayers dollars that we service.
I don't know how this came to the top of the pile, Councillor Zelinski.
I could clarify.
Sure.
If council likes. And again, I don't have those two resolutions in front of me, but there were, and don't quote me exactly, but there were 3 resolutions essentially from 2019. There was a further resolution that, for lack of a better word, tabled or deferred 2 of those resolutions to after we had a public meeting. This resolution was not included in that, and that's why it's been brought forward.
And I was being sarcastic, but
oh, sorry.
Councillor Moslin.
Late in the day.
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, the end result of this resolution is to move this whole thing forward. That is, let's put it to the public. Let's start getting it talked about. You know what? I was not in favor of an OCP. Oh, I saw that as a huge delay. I still, you know. Anyhow, staff did not want to go at it piecemeal. Here we are. We're piecemealing it. Nonetheless, I would support this motion because it does take us forward. It involves the public with these definitions. Let's hear about it. Let's hear from them. I do not expect to hear a unified position from the public. Heaven forbid. So I would support us taking this on to the next step. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And we haven't defined an area that this would be going into or that would be appropriate for this this definition. So I don't think we'll get a great amount of public input. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I sent a question up, I'm just going to ask it so it forms part of the record. With respect to courtesy kitchens and their ability to prepare food on site. I didn't see that included in the original proposal. So do we need to clarify that in the definition for the benefit of everyone, like the public and the proposal, whoever's
Mr. Redfern.
So, Councillor, to answer your question, if you would like to make it crystal clear, I had provided some additional an amendment that you could add to it. As written, it is somewhat clear, but if you want to make sure it's crystal clear, you could add within this definition, meals include both food cooked and prepared on-site, as well as food pre-cooked or prepared off-site and brought to the site to be distributed. You could amend it to add that if you want to make it perfectly clear.
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial if we did that, in my opinion.
And making the motion was Councillor Zelinski with Councillor Moslin seconding it. Would you add that then to the wording? Councillor Thompson's addition?
With respect, Your Worship, I really don't see it is necessary. The idea is provided, seems to capture whether or not the food is prepared on site or brought from off site. There is building codes, I believe, that govern the type of work, type of food, and the way it can be prepared specific to each building, not to each service. In other words, my understanding is the courtesy kitchen food preparation is limited by its duct work, not so much its business model. Anyhow, thank you. That's my comments.
Councillor Studley.
Yeah, I was sort of going with Councillor Roslin there. Yeah, there's sort of two things that regulate a kitchen. So number one is the physical things. Do they have enough, in this case, ventilation, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other one is, of course, do they have a food safety plan? So Interior has to go inspect the kitchen, make sure that everything's all good to go. You can't have porous surfaces, and they've got all these sort of standards you have to adhere by. And then you can either become a full-on kitchen, or they might say, no, you can't be a full-on kitchen, you have to fix this or that. And then they go from there, or if you want to be a mobile food truck, there's different standards they have there. And if you're just serving drinks, there's different standards and drinks and food, so forth.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. The reason I would like to see that clarified in the definition is because they do prepare some foods on site. And Melissa Schroeder said that. And I know that there could be questions from members of the public that would argue that they shouldn't be allowed to do that. I just want to protect everybody so that it's very clear. I realize that there's strict regulations through health for kitchens and restaurants and all of that. I would just like to see that if somebody asks a question of one of us or of our staff, yes, they are allowed to prepare whatever. So, and I don't have the wording that Duncan had proposed in front of me, but
So the argument,
I think it's clear.
the argument being that those things are controlled by the health department?
Yeah.
Mr. Redfern?
Yeah, and I don't want to muddy the two. We're talking about use. Use dictates construction. Use dictates renovations. We're talking about use in the community right now, and really, they both somewhat capture it. Is whether or not you want to be very, clear is really what you're debating right now. This is going to pertain to future uses in this type of use. So, however council wants to do it.
Councillor Zelinski, it's your motion.
Yeah, I sort of leaning myself personally on the health side, but if we can make it clear, all the better, because I want to suggest a change myself. So I have no problem if it's consensus to have the wording, but we have to rewrite it so we know what we're saying here. But I'm going to suggest an amendment to your definition, or a change, and I'm going to ask for Councillor Moslin's help, the teacher on it here. So I believe under the charitable nonprofit that the meals are free, and I'd like to clarify that also, similar with the cooking, that means an establishment where meals are provided to the public by a nonprofit or charitable organization on a regular basis. That's the premise, but excludes occasional fundraising and special events where meals may be provided for free. So my English tells me that provided for free only relates to the fundraisers and special events, the way it reads. Again, I'm not an English teacher or anything, but so I want to get that word free in the where meals are provided at no charge to the public by nonprofit. Just to make sure that anything out of that building is free. So I don't, am I off base there or whatnot, but it
Mr. Redfern.
So I just, Councillor Zelinski, I would just ask you regarding your intent. The way it sounded there, sorry, some background. The way it's written, charitable or nonprofit food service means an establishment where meals are provided to the public by a nonprofit or charitable organization on a regular basis. Does it matter if they're free or charged? Because if we add free in the beginning, then as long as a charitable organization is charging, then they're good to go. And don't fall under this again. So we were just trying to really capture charge-free, nonprofit, charitable, and really lump everybody together to say, whether you cook it at home or you cook it in the building, whether you charge or you don't charge, you fall under here if you're charitable or nonprofit providing food.
And I think the effort there is to make that as inclusive as possible from. So I think you're arguing against your own rationales here, Councillor. It's your motion. Do you want to modify it further?
Sorry, just a request to Councillor Thompson, whether her concerns are met in here, or how would the wording be if your concerns are included, Councillor Thompson?
Can I emailed it to you?
Okay.
Hey,
We'll grab it for you, Councillor Thompson. Just 1 second.
okay,
I'd just like to see it as inclusive as can be. I understand the rationale for not putting that free with nonprofit and charitable organizations, because who knows what they need.
You can take free out altogether if you like.
Removal of free?
I might be better.
Yep, you can take that all together out.
Okay, and does that, Councillor Moslin, you would agree to that? You're the seconder?
Right after events, get rid of it.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'm trying to catch up here. You're gonna strike that phrase, right?
That's right.
That makes sense to me, Your Worship, on the understanding that we're basically kicking this ball forward into the next phase. We're asking for the public's input. They may give us input which changes it again anyways.
Yes.
And then, even then, it's not part of anything until, we get our OCP. I appreciate the conversation that council's putting into this. That's the important part that we're talking about.
Okay.
The actual wording, I'm also worried about. Thank you.
All right, it looks like this could be moved to a decision here.
I'm happy with the resolution as presented here.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Calling for the question, all those in favor and opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, do we have any comments from the public, Les?
Nope. I asked
Nothing
them
from
about
the
5
public?
minutes ago, there's nothing.
And we are down to the resolution for section 90. Can I have a motion to go into a section 90 in camera? And I see Councillor Thompson and Councillor Corlick. All those in favor. So we are now going into a in-camera meeting, and can I call for a 5-minute adjournment here while we get ready?